don't know if it was my age or my lack of horror cinema influence that made it traumatising. Personally, I feel the reason it terrifies me the most is because it frightened a man whom I admire as much as my father. My uncle, who may have seen the worst of war while serving in Vietnam and all the worst of people in his 20-year career as a criminal investigator. I've asked him about these only a few times. Each time, without fail, he has a small moment of reflection, turns to me and smiles, saying, "The gift of voice is precious. Ugly stories should never taint it." He was a reserved man, and I've only seen him make a few expressions over the years. Most of my memories I have of him, he's smiling. A few when he's irate due to me shaving off half his left eyebrow when he napped, and one memory when he cried as my family lowered his wife of 30 years to rest. Looking back, I cannot recall ever seeing him express one emotion, which is why my scariest moment will always be remembered as the night I saw fear. It was December, and the nights were getting colder. It took more and more firewood to burn to keep the house warm. Nearing the bottom of the wood stack, my grandmother knew the rest wouldn't last us a night, so she asked my uncle to fetch more from the mountains. I knew the part of the forest she was referring to with the best wood to burn was at least a 2-hour drive by dirt road, so I didn't volunteer my services. I was situated on the sofa with a cosy blanket, a cup of chocolate milk, and above all else, Mario needed my help saving his girlfriend Pauline from the evil clutches of Donkey Kong on my brand new Game Boy. Unfortunately for me, my uncle didn't share my sentiment for Pauline's safety, so within the hour we were on our way up to the mountains in his 1986 Chevy pickup. I stacked the wood he chopped as fast as I could. Pauline was waiting. The bed was half full, and my uncle called out, "That's enough, the sun's setting." He loaded up the axe and chainsaw while I nursed my splinters. We got in the truck, and he looked at me and said, "Good work." Hearing him say that put my feel-good meter on high. I should have held onto that feeling longer, because for the rest of the night I would feel nothing like it again. The sun was completely gone from the sky halfway back. I remember looking out of the window and feeling a kind of peace watching the silhouette of trees race by with the pitter-patter of stars twinkling above them. I turned to my uncle and watched as he sang quietly along with a country song from the radio. My eyes wandered and I watched the needle of the speedometer fluctuate on the bright 30. In seconds the radio took away the music and gave only static. My uncle shook his head and turned off the radio. Then immediately I had an awful sense of being watched. My neck hairs stood up and a chill lingered down my spine. Before I could turn, my uncle quickly shouted, "Don't!" I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, and then it completely stopped when I heard her. From the window by my head, at that moment, I can say is the only time I ever saw fear on my uncle's face. That came from outside my window, I thought, still watching my uncle as he sped up the truck, loudly praying in Navajo. My mind was racing, so I only caught a few words from his prayer. "Protect us, evil. It is staring." I wanted to cry. I wanted it to stop. All these thoughts completely vanished in an instant when the truck dipped suddenly from the bed. It jumped in the back. My uncle looked at me going back and forth with the road. "Look at me and don't turn away," he said over and over. Then, like before, but this time from the window directly behind me, it was getting harder for me to breathe. I shut my eyes as tight as I could and begged it to go away. A minute or two passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around and sighed. It was quiet beside the truck on the road. He looked at me and said, "We will have your father do a prayer in the morning so the evil will forget our faces." I remember curling up on the seat and just staring at the radio, watching the time while listening to my uncle sing an old prayer till we got back to my grandmother's house. My uncle has never talked about it until now. Flash forward 18 years. I was asked, "What is the scariest moment that ever happened to you?" I knew exactly what I wanted to write, but one conversation, he reluctantly told me. These are his words, translated from Navajo to its English equivalent. What I saw was a terrified child, and what I saw behind him was evil. I saw only eyes and hair, red eyes like the back end of a truck in the distance. Those eyes were watching you with evil purpose. I was scared. We talked some more and even joked about it. I asked, why didn't you just hit the brakes when it was in the bed? There was no